Imagine being stranded on a deserted island with nothing but the sound of crashing waves and the rustle of palm trees to keep you company. The ship you sailed on only days earlier, wrecked on the nearby rocks, you being the lone survivor of your crew. With limited resources and no hope of immediate rescue, you face the ultimate test of resilience, relying on your wits and sheer determination to survive. This is the situation that Pedro Serrano found himself in. A man whose incredible story has been recounted for over 450 years. Join us as we delve into Pedro's inspiring battle against starvation, isolation, and the elements. Into the deep. Due to the age of this story, very little factual information is known about the birth and early life of Pedro Serrano. What we do know is that sometime around the mid-16th century, the Spanish sailor set out on a voyage as a crew member on a merchant vessel, crossing the Atlantic Ocean to the New World. This trip would soon become a nightmare for Pedro, as on one fateful night, a violent storm tore through the ship he was on, wrecking it completely. Everyone on board perished except Pedro. A powerful swimmer, he managed to reach a small, desolate island off the northeastern coast of South America, miles away from any shipping routes. While the exact location of this island is unknown, it is widely theorized Pedro was shipwrecked on Sarana Bank, a small sandy atoll in the Caribbean Sea. When he awoke the next morning, Pedro realized the true gravity of his situation. The island was barren, with no vegetation besides some grass and a few trees. Worst of all, however, the island had no fresh water, making his chances of survival even slimmer. Pedro soon scoured the island and nearby coral reef in search of food sources, discovering a small group of shellfish to eat, though he was forced to consume them raw. While this sustained him for a few days, he knew if he had any chance of surviving long-term on the sandy atoll, he would need a long-term food source. Luckily for Pedro, one day when exploring the shallow lagoon, he spotted turtles swimming near the shore. He knew what this meant. They would come ashore at night to lay their eggs. As dusk fell, Pedro hid behind a rocky outcrop, waiting in silence, the darkness pressing in around him. Hours passed, and the air grew thick with tension. Finally, the turtles began to emerge from the water, lumbering onto the beach. Then, using his knife, a precious tool he had managed to keep from the shipwreck, Pedro caught and killed several turtles, using their meat to sustain himself and their shells to collect rainwater, a rare but life-saving resource. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Pedro faced the harsh elements with no shelter from the scorching sun or violent storms, surviving only on the turtles which came ashore and the rainwater which collected in their empty shells during the downpours. As the months passed, Pedro searched endlessly for a way to start a fire, knowing that it would not only allow him to cook his food, but also signal passing ships for help. Serrano was surrounded by washed-up seaweed, driftwood, and the remains of shipwrecks, plenty of potential fuel. But without flint, it was useless. His knife could serve as steel, but finding the right stone was the real challenge. The island was little more than a sandbank, barren and unforgiving. Pedro searched the island daily, combing every inch of the island for something that could strike a spark. But his efforts were futile. There was no flint to be found. Determined, Pedro turned to the sea. A skilled diver, he explored the ocean floor, hunting for anything that resembled flint. After countless dives, he finally discovered 2 stones that had the right look and feel. With hope rekindled, he brought them ashore and ground them together until a sharp edge formed. He had already gathered a pile of dried seaweed, and now, with his makeshift flint and steel, he struck the stones against his knife. It took several attempts, but finally a spark flew, igniting the tinder. The fire crackled to life, its warmth and light, a small victory against the relentless isolation. For the first time in months, Pedro ate a hot meal, a simple pleasure that reignited his will to survive. Three years passed on the island, during which time Pedro's clothes disintegrated and his hair and beard grew long and wild. His body adapted to the harsh environment, growing a layer of coarse hair that provided some protection from the elements. He often saw ships pass by in the distance, but his signals went unnoticed. The loneliness would have been crushing, and we can only imagine Pedro's days blurred into an endless cycle of hope when seeing a distant ship on the horizon, and the despair that would follow when they continued on, not noticing him. One fateful morning, Pedro was startled awake, squinting his eyes in haze of his campfire. What he saw nearly stopped him in his tracks. A human face staring back at him through the smoke. The man, like Pedro, was a fellow Spaniard. He had been shipwrecked the previous night and had survived by clinging to a piece of driftwood until he reached the island. As the stranger approached, fear gripped them both. The newcomer was unnerved by Pedro's disheveled and primitive appearance, and Pedro, wild from years of isolation, was shocked by the sight of another person and feared he might be seeing an apparition. In their fear, both men turned and ran, each assuming the other was a trick by the devil. Pedro, in his panic, cried out to the heavens for protection from the apparition. Hearing his cries for help, the other man stopped, recognizing the language and the desperation in Pedro's voice. "Brother," he shouted, "don't run away from me. I'm a Christian, as I believe you must be." Reassured by the recognition of each other's humanity, Pedro and the other castaway settled into a new routine. Together, they split the daily tasks, keeping the fire burning, gathering seaweed, fishing, and collecting driftwood. With the combined strength of 2 men, they managed to overturn and catch even larger turtles, ensuring a more reliable food supply. As the years dragged on, 4 more in total, the 2 men often watched as ships passed on the distant horizon, their hearts sinking each time their smoke signals went unnoticed. But then, one day, a vessel ventured closer than any before. The men scrambled to build up their signal fire, and this time they were finally seen. A small boat broke off from the ship and headed towards the island. Wild with excitement and desperation, Pedro and his companion raced across the beach to meet their rescuers. The sight of 2 ragged, hairy figures charging towards them caused the sailors to pause in terror, thinking they had encountered something monstrous. But Serrano and his companion shouted in Spanish, trying to reassure them. Eventually, the sailors realized these were not wild men, but fellow Spaniards who had endured years of isolation. Pedro and his companion were taken aboard the ship, which was bound for Spain, where Pedro recounted how he had miraculously survived 7 years on a desolate, barren atoll. Sadly, the years of hardship were not so kind to his companion, who did not survive the voyage home. Now, alone once more, Pedro carried the weight of their shared ordeal and the haunting memories of their struggle to survive. Upon his return to Spain, sometime after 1550, Pedro was reunited with his family, who had long believed him to be lost at sea. He would continue to tell his incredible tale of survival for the rest of his life, a testament to human resilience against overwhelming odds. Pedro Serrano's story is a chilling reminder of the thin line between life and death, and the incredible lengths a person can go to survive. His tale, preserved in the royal commentaries of Peru by Garcilaso de la Vega, is a testament to human endurance and the will to live, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Thank you for joining us on another journey into the deep. If you were moved by this story, be sure to subscribe for more true retellings of human endurance and adventure. Until